Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Movie Club Emporium. And this week, yes, we are pulling quite the nostalgia buster on yours truly, because we are going to be talking about a movie that, again, I haven't seen in close to 30 years, that I absolutely adored growing up. And we're going to find out, does it still stand the test of time? We're talking about 1990s Dick Tracy. So, what's to kind of give you some context, kids? Dick Tracy was a comic strip from like the forever, like to ask your grandparents about the Dick Tracy comic strips. At this point, ask your great grandparents about it. He was a cop who uh took down criminals, and because it was a comic strip, they were all drawn very weirdly. They were all given names like Prune Face and Big Boy and Flat Top, Mole Man and Lips, and they were all just drawn very bizarrely. And Dick Tracy took them down. So, in the wake of 1989's juggernaut that was Tim Burton's Batman, we could not get enough comic movies for a brief time. But what was fun was comic books characters, characters like the Flash or Green Lantern. Those were no go. We couldn't do those. We needed gritty, down to earth comic book characters from the 40s. Like, that's what we wanted. So while we did get a Flash TV show, which Danny Elfman did the music for, after doing the Batman Overture, and that theme song sounds like a complete ripoff of the Batman Overture. He does the music for Dick Tracy, and the opening theme sounds like a ripoff of the Batman Overture. We got characters, like I said, like Dick Tracy or The Shadow, which is a movie that we'll let the heat die down, I guess, on Alec Baldwin, and then maybe someday we'll talk about that. Or The Phantom with Billy Zane, like these weird characters from the 40s that at the time kids in the 90s could not care less about. We're giving these big Hollywood movies. And this one is even crazier because it's written and directed and starring Warren Beatty. Every 1990th, so I would have been 5 years old, 6 years old. Every 6-year-old's favorite actor, 50-something Warren Beatty. Because he loved the character and had the rights to make the movie. And it was made at Disney. It was Hollywood Pictures, Touchstone. It was Disney's adult company. It stars Warren Beatty as Dick Tracy. You have a 1990 Madonna. Woo! I can't remember why I love this movie so much. Who was like in her early 30s dating Warren Beatty at the time. What was also wild about this movie is the sheer size of the cast of this film, because you have a who's who of like big name actors in this film playing all these goofy looking bad guys, whether it's Al Pacino as the main heavy big boy Caprice. You have William Forsythe as Flat Top, Dustin Hoffman as Mumbles, Mandy Patinkin's in this movie. I think his name was Keys. Dick Van Dyke, Henry Silva from a few weeks ago when we talked about Ghost Dog. The actor who I can't remember his name. He's the general from Predator, the old guy. So many like big name actors are in this movie. Kathy Bates shows up for one brief scene as a stenographer. Like, it's just the who's who that Warren Beatty called in. I don't understand. We joke all the time about how when there's a bunch of horror veterans in a movie, you're like, oh, well, they filmed this movie while they were at a convention all together. But there are so many big, like, at the time and until still today, big name actors in this movie, under all this makeup. And I gotta tell you, I watched it on Blu-ray. All these years later, even under high definition, the makeup and the costumes, the look of this movie whether it's the matte paintings or the miniatures that are happening, absolutely stunning. This movie is a work of art as it comes to production design and effects and stuff like that. And then you get a real fun story of Dick Tracy saving this rapscallion boy known as Kid from one of the most terrifying characters from my childhood. Meanwhile, he's caught up in this kind of Elliot Ness v. Al Capone type battle against Big Boy Caprice, who's wanting to unite all these gangs, take down Dick Tracy. You have Madonna as the sultry lounge singer who one thing that shocked me dead on this Blu-ray high def watch is this was Disney. I mean, again, it was Touchstone and it was Hollywood Pictures, so it was like when we want to make movies that aren't for little kids, not Disney, but still under their umbrella. She's totally nude in one of these scenes. Like she's under a sheer like see-through robe, but it's just naked Madonna. And I was like, well, they weren't planning for 1080p when they filmed that. But him dealing with her trying to seduce him, also his long-suffering girlfriend Tess. Then he's framed for murder, which does that weird thing in movies that I hate, where it's just like, oh, this guy we've known for 20 years who's like complete straight as an arrow, who would never be corrupted, is kind of half framed for murder or left in a compromising situation, and everybody who's ever done him just like, I guess he's a dirty cop. But no, what makes this work for me is it carries over. I was never a big comic reader of the Tracy, like you read Garfield because it was funny. You read Peanuts because you're like patriotically required to. If you're from my generation, you read Zits because it was like Jeremy from Zits knew what it was like to be a teenager. Before he went crazy, you read Dilbert. But I didn't read a lot of Dick Tracy. I didn't know there was a cartoon from like the 70s, kind of that Super Friends era. But as for a character I didn't know, from a comic strip I didn't read, this movie just completely took me personally by storm. Like I had the action figures, I had like the bedding. I somewhere right now, packed away is my still like Dick Tracy doll with like real clothes that I got for Christmas one year. Like it's just Dick Tracy fever swept the Gracie household. I'm it was utterly fantastic. And so being able to watch it again all these years later, showing it to my son who really enjoyed it, he couldn't get over like the matte paintings and the model stuff. He really dug into that and the makeup, which is not usually something he cares about at all, but he was just blown away by how well it looked. I totally had a blast revisiting this movie. Now here's the problem. Yes, this is Disney, but it's not available on Disney Plus. It's not available on Hulu. It's not streaming anywhere, I don't think. I think you can get it on Blu-ray. Maybe it's still in print. I'm not sure. You may have to go through like Amazon, or I don't know if you can even rent it digitally. Maybe, if you can, or if you can get your hands on it. 100%. This movie was absolutely fantastic. It was just a warm. Nick and I always talk about warm blanket movies that it's gross outside and you just want to cover up with something and just sit back and be toasty warm in a movie. This is definitely one of those, and I'm so happy to know that it does stand up to that test of time. And a weird time for movies because again, you couldn't get a new Superman, you couldn't get a Green Lantern, we couldn't get Wonder Woman. But like this was the lead up. You got Batman movies, you got this, The Shadow, and Phantom. And then they made the Spawn movie, which at some point we'll talk about, and then it was Dead Till Blade. So what's weird is that in the 90s we were just like, no, 1940s vintage comic character movies. The kids are gonna love it. Kids love pulp. But no, I actually had a blast with this movie. I think it's fantastic. Definitely is not something I would expect to not only hold up, but to expect to still love, because again, it's a 50-year-old Warren Beatty running around in a yellow trench coat, fighting goofy looking dudes, and it's an absolute blast. So do yourself a favor and go check out Dick Tracy. You're gonna have fun with it, I hope. Next week, though, well, let me say this. First of all, click that like and subscribe button. I'm gonna start doing this YouTube stuff. All these videos in now, we might as well start, pretending like, we kind of want you to be here. We do. Make sure you like and subscribe. Join us each month over on our Twitch channel, where we do monthly live hangouts. Where you can see some videos. I'm sure we'll do another round of warm blanket movies. But this month, for April, we are discussing Mad Max knockoff. So I'm going to talk about the most Mad Max, the Mad Max knockoff from the early aughts. That was like, not only are we going to knock off Mad Max, we're also going to knock off zombie movies and Knight Riders and Camelot and everything else you can think of. We're talking about Neil Marshall's Doomsday. So stay tuned for that next week. It's gonna be an absolute blast. And again, yeah, I never thought I'd be one to long for a yellow fedora, but I don't think my wife would let me have one. That's okay. I mean, we did have talking watches in the movie, so we scored that. But I just wish we wear a lot of bright primary color clothing. Oh, for what could have been. See you guys next week. Bye.